Hi, Sean Huxter here. Welcome to Sydney Swift Shuts Down the Steam Power Punk. This is my Mighty Max-like Doom Zone, starring my own character, Sydney Swift. But in the last couple of videos, we assembled this much of the bottom section. And we have like the wheel here, and there's a wheel here that rotates, and the hatch comes up to reveal a self-destruct device. I need to get my light on the other side. Anyway, so tonight I'm going to assemble the vehicle. Now you've seen the vehicle already, but I had to reprint a couple parts, and that meant I kind of had to redo it all. So right now we're going to reassemble. Oh, this is the reason why. I wanted to have, let me just zoom in a little here. I wanted to have details on this console, and I didn't before, so I could paint those. I didn't want to use a sticker there. I would rather have molded it in, so I did that. And now we're going to reassemble the vehicle. And the first thing we do is we do some test fitting to make sure this all works. So we take one of these. This goes down through here. Yeah, that's beautiful. Excellent. All right. So the first thing that has to happen is we have the deck. This is the vehicle deck, the control deck. The first thing we do is we have to apply two risers here, because the risers make room for the claws to fit in. So the risers have to go here and here, and so there's two of those. And this is the rear riser, which has these nice little rivets on it. And there's the other riser, which is not in the parts list right now. Let me just grab it. Pesky teeny little part just kind of hit on me. Notice it's not all painted because you don't see everything. The only thing you really see is this front section. Now note my hands are very full of paint right now because I've been spray painting, and I've been using acrylic paints, and I've been using Testors model paints. By the way, this is Sydney Swift. I managed to get a flesh color that looks not too bad. I still may decide to paint the face eventually, but this is Sydney Swift right now. Sydney fits into this little foothold here, and we'll eventually control the console. But I also want to introduce this. There he is. Introduce this other version. So I'm doing these various poses, and I did this one, and this may be the smallest ray gun that I've ever made. So this is Sydney Swift with a ray gun for maybe this set, maybe a different set. It does sort of fit the theme, but we'll see. Anyway, back to the vehicle. So the first thing we do is we turn this over and we add the risers. So one thing I learned last time is I'm not using this gel super glue anymore, because I'll show you why. I added a little bit. It adds, when you add the super glue, the gel, it kind of adds this haze. This kind of hazy substance. And what really bothers me is that I had to go over here and paint down. I had to color match some acrylic paint and paint it down, and that's not what I wanted to do for the set. I wanted it to be pristine, fully painted in its own right, and not touched up afterwards. But, you know, live and learn. So I'm not going to use that gel anymore. I'm going to use your standard crazy glue or super glue. Eventually, when I do more parts, I might turn to binary epoxy, but for now we're doing this. So the first thing we do is we place the large riser. And so that just needs a little bit of glue. You know what? Maybe if I turn the light to the other side, I can't. The cord won't reach. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit of glue here. Oh, that's way too much. I need to get a little paper towel to wipe down some of this glue. I'm thinking I may need to get micro applicators for very small amounts of glue. So you put a little bit here, and you really only need a very tiny amount. There, and there maybe, and here. And then that goes into these little holes that I've made here, like so. And I really modeled this to fit nice and tight. There's no wiggle room there whatsoever. And now we need to put the other one in. This one is a more shallow, so this one may have a little wiggle room, but we put a little bit of glue on the little home plate shaped thing, and we place this down here so that the two angled curved parts are in front, and those curved parts fit the claws when the claws retract into the vehicle. So we place this here, and there you go. There's a little wiggle room, but not much. Not as much, not a whole lot, but more than the previous one. Now we let that set for a second, and the next thing we do is we put the claws in place, and we attach the claw pipes. And there's a bit of a tricky bit there, because I don't really have any kind of mechanism to hold it in place, so I have to glue it and be very careful. So the glue doesn't get into the moving parts. That's going to be a bit of a tough challenge, but I think I can do it with some toothpicks. Not sure how effective this is going to be. I've done this before, and it's a bit tricky, but that's all right. Let's have a look there. So what we do is we have to put the claws so that the detail is up. Well, in this case, up. This is up. So where we flip it over, the detail is down. So this one goes here. And you see how the claw fits into that little nook right there, like that. And the other one fits in on the other side, like so. And they kind of mesh together. And then these holes here are where the gears come down. You probably heard that. This is what I call a vroom bro. This is a dude who likes to make his motors very loud so that you can ride by a neighborhood going, notice me, for God's sake, notice me. Anyway, for now, we'll put that aside. So the tricky part here is you have to put these in place. And these are meant to fit in a specific way so that when you place these into the holes, the registered side is on the inside like so. And you do the same with the other one, while they aim backwards like so. They have to aim back. And lower my light a little. So the tricky part is getting these in place without gluing them to any moving part. And so what I do is I push this through, and these are, like I said, these are tight tolerances, so it'll work. But they are tight tolerances, so you got to kind of work it as you go. Now, the tricky part is aligning them first of all, so that they both line up correctly in the dock. And the only way to do, see how the gears mesh together? How you do that is you pull them apart, like so, and then you test fit them together, and I believe they go like that. And then when they come in together, they mesh like that. And once you've done that, you know you've got them aligned. And now you push these all the way down. Come on, don't be a pain. Now this is going to be a pain, isn't it? All right, let me just pause this and get this fixed. Yeah, so I think what happened there is I just had a little bit too much paint in there, and the tolerances are really fine, very close. So if you add a little bit too much paint, and that can blow the whole scheme. So let's get this out like so, and this up like so. Get these into lock place, which means the gears mesh like that right there, and then they're in lock position. Now here's the tricky part, because you want to glue this post to the arm, but not to anything else. And so the best way to do it is to use like a toothpick or something. I mean, you could use a brush, but it'd have to be a throwaway brush. And then you just put a little bit of glue on your toothpick. And just apply it into the registered edge there. And there's just enough there that will seep into the edge, into the crevice, and hopefully form a bond. And I couldn't really come up with a better way to do this. So let's hoping that works. But then the best thing to do is to turn it over so that none of the glue runs into, like if you had it upside down, the glue could run down and then attach itself to something inside, and you do not want that. Meantime, we're going to assemble some other sub-assemblies, and that would be the arms, or the gas fittings. And there's two of these like louvered pipes sort of, and each of these has a different fitting so that I know for sure I got the right engine for it. And this one's the other one, and this one is the one with the arrow hook. So adding a little glue, and I think the best place to put the glue is on, let me move all this up a little bit because you can't really see what I'm doing. Best way to do it is to put the glue around here, just around the edge like so, and a little bit out around, and then some inside, just a little bit, and then take the one that's registered to the right shape and jam it into place, and let that sit for a bit while that glue cures, and that doesn't take long with super glue. And you do the same thing on the other side. Now these holes, you might notice, are designed so that when this prints, it's hollow. And that saves a lot of resin, but also saves a lot of weight, because when this was heavy and solid, the vehicle would topple over backwards. There's just too much rear weight. So I hollowed these models out, and then I placed holes, Because if you're going to hollow a model in resin printing, you can really ruin the model if there's nowhere for the resin vacuum to go. So the holes allow the resin to slip in and out of the model seamlessly while it's printing, and you don't get any warping. But you can get warping with resin printing. That is kind of a caveat here. Now let's see if this works. These were a bit tight tolerance-wise. Ah, good, they do work. Excellent. Now, to get this to work properly, you have to glue the base on, but you got to be very careful because you do not want to put any glue here because this is the working mechanism. So you put a little dab of glue on this riser and a little dab on this riser and push this together and it will seal perfectly, and then these are free to move. So you be very careful here because you do not want to touch the claws. And in fact, that's a little bit too much. So what I'm going to do is leech off a little bit of that with a paper towel, like so, and that will be fine. And then do a similar thing down here. Now this one, there's no real moving parts close to it, so that is actually a little bit safer, but I am still going to leech a little off and maybe spread a little around with a paper towel. As long as we don't get the glue into the working mechanism, this should be fine. And then we take this and we attach it. See, these little holes here are where the pegs go when we attach the halves, when the vehicle is together. So that is the base of the vehicle, and these will rotate and the claws come out. It'll be a lot easier when the rest of the vehicle is put together. So let that sit for a moment. While we're doing that, we add some detail to this while this is actually gluing in place. There is a little tiny space right in the front here, and that is for a grill. So put a tiny bead of glue there, just a little bit. And we have a little copper grill that goes right into that space. Oop, don't want to spill any glue on the outside there. Let me just make sure I don't have any on the outside. There's a paper towel to leech off a little bit of extra glue if there's any. And then we can pop this in place like so. And again, all my tolerances are pretty tight. So that should go pretty much. Let me just make sure I'm aligning that correctly. Yeah, so there's the grill on the front. I had toyed with putting headlights on this thing, but I didn't bother. Who knows? Future version? I don't know. And the other details we had to this is the engine, which is a geared engine, very steam powered like, and that goes into the little hole right here. So, like so, there's a tab and you put it like so. Oh, come on, fit, there you go. And again, tolerances are very tight. Once you get that in, there's barely a wiggle. And that's that. And then the last thing we do is add the, to the details anyway, we add the jet underjet. And that is like so. And then we take the underjet here and place it into place and hold it. Look at the detail on that. I mean, this printer is spectacular. A little bit of more paint there probably would have been nice, but I guess I can always touch that up with copper later. But yeah, it's hard to get into that area when you're spray painting concave areas like that. But that's the vehicle mainly. But now we add the two engines. And again, we have this registration here so that the arrow, so you know which way the engine faces. Each one faces outward. So that the reason we do that is we want these gears, these grills, these louvers in the gas mask filters to align. Because remember, this vehicle, when it's in place, is a gas mask on the main face. So once again, we add a little glue here, just a bit, around the edge, and that's good. And that will fit into this, like so. Make sure that's like so. And hold. I'm going to pause while I hold because it's going to be boring. Still holding. And now we take the second one, do the same. Just a bit of a bead there all the way around. That's enough, that's enough. And that register goes outward from this one. So the two arrows fit together like so. And then we hold this together. And we hold until that dries, and so I'm going to pause it again. And there we have the vehicle finished. So Sid will sit here, My lighting is not very good, right? I'm sorry, guys. Sid will sit here, or stand here. You know, I always say sit when I'm talking about this, but it's actually standing. He will stand in the control area there and control the vehicle. And that is that. Now, I don't think this held, so I'm going to have to put a little bit more glue in there and try again. But for now, the point is, this is the vehicle. When you push the engines back, the claws retract as a menacing thing, and when you're done, the claws go in. All right, that is the vehicle, which then fits into the dock here, like so, which then slides into the mouth, which we've seen before, and this gangway pulls forward when the head comes down and locks the whole thing in place. And so, for now, while I fix this with a little bit more glue, this has been Sean Huckster, and Sydney Swift shuts down the steam power punk. Join me next time as I hopefully start working on the main head.